Hi everyone. AWS released its latest update on Q Developer with the release of Q CLI. It allows developers to write code right from their terminal. It uses Anthropic Claude 3.7 Sonnet behind the scene. I have been working on Q Developer over the last 6 months, and I'm really amazed to see the pace and the speed of this particular release. We're gonna dive right into writing and using Q Developer and writing a Java Spring Boot application. And let's go in terms of how it actually helps us solve problems along the way. We are also going to compare the Q Developer CLI release with Claude code release, which happened a couple of weeks back. So let's get straight into it. In order to get started, the first thing that you need is to install Amazon Q for command line on your desktop, on your laptop, whatever machine you use. The first thing that we're going to do is download it. I've already downloaded it and installed it on my MacBook. And you need to authenticate it using the builder ID, which is the Amazon builder ID that you would need, or with your IAM Identity Center URL that you use. So I've already downloaded it, installed it, and set up my configuration with the Q Developer Pro access that I have. All right, so once we have set up and done the installation on our machine, we will be going to the terminal. So I've gone to my terminal, and what we're going to do is type Q chat. When you do that, it is automatically going to log in to the Q app itself. That is, now you can actually start writing your prompts in a natural language, and it'll actually give you a response appropriately. But before that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control-C, get out, and then create a folder in here in which we're going to create a Java Spring Boot application. So in order to do that, let me just create a folder called POC And once I've done this, let's get into this folder, QDev, and then let's do QChat. So I've done QChat. I've got a prompt that I'm going to type in here, and basically you'll see it now. So the prompt says create a Java Spring Boot application which creates CRUD REST endpoints for an item object. We need to create a web-based application, and also we are going to use Java on my machine, and we use Maven as my build tool. And in order to make things life a bit easier, we want a run.sh file which can run both the front end and the back end in one go. So let's see what it does. Oops, let's try it once again. All right, here we go. Cool, so it's asking me to validate the version. So I'm going to press Y in here, and it has already picked up OpenJDK 17.02. It'll run a shell command to generate the front end, which is fine. Then it's going to do the backend folder creation. And it's interesting because it actually asks you to validate each and every step. And if you don't think the response and whatever it has thought through is accurate, you can actually prompt it once again. And it really is quite powerful in that way. Created a Spring Boot XML, pub.xml file. And you'll see it's got the Spring Boot starter. It's got H2 for the in-memory database to store the records. And it's come up with the application.properties, the configuration files itself. So we're going to use Y, created the property file as well. Now it's creating the Spring Boot application itself. Now, unlike if you are typing the same commands in Q Developer on the VS Code console, I personally notice that takes a bit of time. In case of the same problem, it'll take a few minutes to actually collate everything together. One of the things that we find challenging at that time is we don't know what's happening behind the scene. And this is pretty powerful because it tells us exactly how the model is thinking. And then we can tune the response and give it a prompt, a different prompt if you don't want it to go in a particular direction. So now we can see it's created a Pojo object which is class item. Then it creates a repository for interaction with the JPA, using JPA with the database. And then it will probably create the controller. Yeah, so it's created a controller class, a service class, sorry, to interact with the backend as a service component. And now it should create the controller itself. There we go. So I created the controller class, which has got the endpoints, my REST endpoints, and you'll see that it automatically picks up the request mapping, which is API items, cross origin for the local host, like the UI making a call to the backend, which is pretty good. And then it created the get, post, put, and delete methods as well, which is awesome. So let's press Y, and it will create the controller. The web config, it's fine. All right, so what it has done is it is doing a data initializer, which means that it is automatically running a command which will insert these 5 different rows into the database, the H2 database, which is quite interesting because it did not pick up the same component when I ran the same command earlier. So that's interesting. All right, so you'll see it has created the backend service. Now it's going to go and create the React frontend. So let's see what it does. And I'm not a frontend individual, but hopefully the steps would make sense in terms of what it's trying to do. It's created a package.json to look at the dependencies, etc. that's needed. All right, it's creating a folder called item manager frontend. It's created the index.html page. Bootstrap. I find the 3.7 Sonnet to be extremely powerful because at every step you can see what exactly it's thinking, and you can actually prompt it to go in a different direction, even for the backend, the front end side of things. So it's really, really cool. When I ran this earlier, I had an issue wherein I did not have Maven installed on my machine. So it actually automatically went ahead, understood that I don't have Maven installed, and installed Maven in the first place. Same for NPM. For the front end packages itself, it detected that I don't have NPM on my local machine. It went ahead and installed that as well, which is pretty fascinating to see. Cool, so it's creating a few different services, Axios for the HTTP calls. So you can see that's going to the, for every request, it's going to a particular API URL. In this case, that's localhost 8080 where the backend is going to be serviced from. It's creating an item service.j, that's what it's created. All right, so that's the, what's that? So it is the item list, so the list of items to show it back to the user. So a consolidated list of all the items that have been created. All right, so what else has it done? So this is the add item. Okay, so when we're going to add the item into our database, that's what the JS file was for. It has got a few labels, price, description, quantity, and yeah, and it's going to save, and we can make the relevant call itself over there. All right, so next up is the edit item. So if you are editing a record, that's what it's going to do. It's going to create it has created a JS file for that operation. Now I find this fascinating because the CRUD operation that we mentioned, it's kind of picked up each and every object that we need. It automatically picked up the service that would the UI that would have to be relevant and had to sync with the backend endpoint. It's pretty phenomenal as to how it's picking up all those changes. All right, so this one is our probably the run.sh file. So you will see that what it does, it's automatically checks if the Java is installed, Maven npm is installed or not. Then it does a Maven clean package and skip the test for now, which is fine. We're gonna add it anyway. Then it starts the backend server using Java jar, the jar file, and then it spins up the front end as well, and then it echoes a few things as well. And it's already done exception handling and error handling as well in this particular case, which is pretty cool to see. All right, so let's get it up and running. And now it's going to, so interestingly, because we're not going to run the sh file, it needs to write command. So therefore, the next step for the CLI is to pick up the permissions, which is pretty cool. All right, now it summarizes everything that it has done. So basically for backend, for frontend, it gives a structure. Pretty interesting structure, to be honest. And it talks about, so that's pretty much a standard structure I would create basically. It's interesting how it's picked up the default package name. I did not give it a package name, but it's easier. If you want to give it a rset package name, you can do it as well. The structure is absolutely what we need for a Spring Boot application. I would have rather preferred an application.yaml file than a properties file, but that will be an easy change as well. All right, so it says the application is ready to use. Run the run.sh script to start both front-end and back-end servers. So the next step is to run that and see how we go. So what we're going to do next is run the run.sh file. So that's what I am going to do here. /run.sh. Whoops, I think, let's check. Okay, so we need to go to the CD item manager. Yeah, and then do the run.sh. Starting up the file, downloading the packages. Cool. So when it started, you can see that it has actually also provisioned the records, and now it is installing the dependency and starting the React app. This is super cool, guys. It is amazing. Let's see what it does. I think it's going to pick up localhost 3000, which you can see it has not picked up just yet, so it's still spinning up. Okay, here we go. Woohoo! All right, so we've got the application. These were the initial records that were created, so it automatically picked up our initial subset. You can see it's created the items manager file. We're going to add a new item. Let's do that. So let me just say I'm going to add Coke, which is a drink. It is $2.80, and then 10 as a quantity, and back to items. And you can see that Coke has been added. It is amazing, guys. This is pretty cool. So we already got the application up and running in under 10 minutes. All right, so the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Q chat, and what we're going to do is we're going to ask it to add some logging functions into our file itself. So I'm going to open up Visual Studio Code. Folder. QC dev. QC dev, open. All right, so item manager, front end, back end, which is pretty cool. Now what we're going to do is we're going to ask it, I think from what I understand and the code that I have seen in the controller and the service method, it has not added there's no basically logging in there. So what I'm going to do is ask you to actually add logging into our service and controller classes. So add logging into the controller and service classes. Let's see what it does now. All right, so it's going to first check what are these controller classes within the manager. It does a few checks. You can see it's going one level at a time, and it's picked up item controller as the first class and then item service as the second class. All right, so it's picked up, and now it's going to add the service methods on. All right, so you can see it has picked up, where's the logging files? Okay, so there we go. SLF4J logger factory, which is cool. We're going to add a Y in there. So it's added that to the controller file. So you will see it has been added on the right side, and now it is adding the changes to the controller methods. So, okay. Controller. So you'll see it's been initialized now, which is good. All right, so it's going to update and add the logger on each of the methods within the class. So, oops, there we go. It has added the logging across the start and the end of the methods, which is awesome. And now it's hopefully picked up the service class. Yeah. So let's go to the service class. It has actually added logger in there, and now it'll add the logging into the file itself. Yeah. All right, so it has added a lot of logging within the service methods as well. There we go. It is pretty cool. So it has said it has added some logging configuration in there for the packages, info for the manager, debug for the service, and info for the controller. I think service is where the logic resides. That's why it's got debug. It has already set the pattern. Execution failed. All right, I don't know what happened there. So it's added the application.properties file, updated the changes, and it has added that as a logging configuration. I think it is pretty cool. Look at how it actually adds subsections with the proper messages. It is pretty awesome. All right, and it comes back to us with all the things that it has added. So it's added SLF for JLogger. It has created item controller, service, added the application properties, updated application properties with the relevant stuff, which is pretty cool. And say service layer uses debug logging, whereas the controller uses info for standard API calls, which is pretty cool. So the next step for us is we're going to try and do a Bedrock endpoint integration with an endpoint on the UI side. So let's say we're going to use the Stable Diffusion model in order to generate an image onto the UI itself. So what I'm going to do here is create a new endpoint which would take a prompt from the user, use Bedrock Stable Diffusion 1.0 XL model, and return the image back to the user. So it's going to create the endpoint. On the Java side, it'll add a UI change to it, which will prompt the user to enter the prompt. It'll use the Bedrock Stable Diffusion 1.0 XL, which is pretty outdated model. It's okay. It's a cheap model to run against, and then it'll return the image back to the user. So let's see what it does. Let's try it once. Oops, what's going on? I don't know whether that's my network or something else, but yeah, it was laggy. Certainly my network, probably there's a dropout or something. All right, so first thing it says it's going to add the AWS SDK dependencies in pom.xml file. So you'll see it's actually added Bedrock runtime, AWS core, etc. in there. Yep. So those two endpoints have been, the Java files have been added. Or dependencies have been added, which is awesome. I don't know about you, but I feel it is incredibly powerful, because rather than me going in, understanding and evaluating which POM file do I need to import, it has automatically done that. The good thing about this also now is, in order to generate the image generation request for Stable Diffusion, it automatically picked up the properties that it requires as an input. So the width, the height, the steps, the CFG scale and seed as all inputs along with the prompt. And to me, I would actually go to the API details, figure out what my request would look like, and then map it back. So you can imagine the amount of time it's going to take, less time it's going to take for us to get the right outcomes, which is pretty cool. I think this is where actually where the efficiency lies, right? You don't have to go in and do 10 different things. Yes, you need to validate the changes or validate exactly what's required, but it just fast tracks your changes so much efficient manner. All right, so I think it generated an AWS config for it to connect, which is fine. But I can see the default AWS region is picked up as US West 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say change the AWS .region to US East 1. All right, so it's picked up that as an input, and now hopefully it'll come back and say I'm going to change the region. Here we go. So it's changed the region as well, which is awesome. While it's doing that, let me just have a sip of tea. There we go. So this is the image generation service, and it has generated a method called generate image. takes a set of objects or our input to that image itself, then do an invoke request to a stable diffusion model ID, which is awesome. And hopefully it's picked up the right model ID as well, which is this one, which is the right one as well, which is awesome. Well done, guys. This is amazing. All right, so I'm going to say why. All right, so it's the controller method for that one, which is good. So let's say why, and let's add it. You can also see it's also added a health endpoint, which is amazing, right? Because you want to make sure that the health of that endpoint is good. So pretty interesting, very nice. All right, so these are the configurations, and it has added, I think, the AWS configuration as well there. Yep, in the region configuration. Okay. And now I think it's going to go back to probably the UI to add changes on the React side of things. So let's see what it does next. All right, here we go. As we said, it's going to generate an image generator on the JS file. So it created that file. We're going to check out what that really means shortly, as we're going to be running the application as well. But you can see it's picking up where it needs to do some changes. So it's added the component for the image generator in the app.js file, which is awesome. So it automatically picked up if I'm adding an image generator.js file, where all do I need to do some changes, and it's going to add some links as well. There we go, on the app.js file. Now I'm not a front-end person, but I can see what logically it's actually doing, which is pretty handy, isn't it? At least I don't need to rely on help from my UI mate to help me. I can actually go and pilot this myself. So this becomes my UI companion. And it has also updated dependencies, which is cool. All right, so now it summarizes, like it did last time. After all the changes, summarizes the details, and it's updated the POM XML file, added configurations, models, controller. So everything step by step, you can see how it's actually thinking, and it's put that thought into a particular methodology in terms of implementation as well. Now it has given how to use it as well, and it says, so one thing that you need to understand is that when we do an image API call back to Bedrock or even the inference endpoint, the image gets generated in base 64, which means that it's an encoded string, and what it says is when the image is returned, it automatically decoded and gets rendered on the browser, which is cool as well. Awesome. So the next step for us is to run this app and see if it has actually rendered the screen and how has it actually done it. So let's go and have a look at it. So what we're going to do next is we found that it cannot download the SDK Bedrock runtime 2.21.0. So we will say the Bedrock, sorry, let me just move this separately. We'll say the Bedrock runtime jar 2.21.0 couldn't be downloaded. Fix this, please. So now we can see it's actually picked up It's going to do a directory scan and hopefully do an MD dependency tree just to figure out exactly what we're talking about. So see if it's gone through some of the Maven stuff. Yes. So it says it's an issue with the repo.maven.apache.org, and it automatically tries to ping the endpoint itself. So it says the Maven repository is accessible. All right, so it says that there is no m2.settings.xml file to have the endpoint there. So it has now added settings.xml file in the m2 folder for Maven. All right, so it's added a configuration as well. So let's see what it does. So it's pretty cool. It's actually taking a step-by-step process to eliminate where the issue might be, which is pretty interesting, pretty darn awesome. I reckon what it's going to do is it's going to get everything, run a test once again, and I'm not sure whether the issue will come again. But if it will, it'll actually go in and find a different version of the package. All right, see, it actually picked up the error again. So now it's going to run this command to check whether that version exists, and it made a call again. But it does it clean, so it's going to do it once again. I'm going to fast forward all of these building process just in the interest of time. I don't want to bore you guys to death. But what I would love about this tool is the capability for it to understand what the issue might be and then choose a process of elimination to actually help us fix the error at its root, at its core, which is absolutely phenomenal. From what I've seen, I don't think the Q developer on the VS Code side primarily does go into all of these details. So it's certainly way different in terms of how we interact with the tool itself and how it is actually helping us with a quick and faster response and the response changes depending upon the state you're in at that particular point in time. So again, it's coming back with an error, and let's see what it does now. Oh God! All right. So it says, I can see the issue. It's not available in the Maven repository. So let me check what other versions are available. So now it's going through the Maven metadata versions .xml to figure out which version it can actually use. All right, so it's got some response from the metadata one. It'll probably pass this XML response, and Oh, there we go. So it's returned a list of all the versions that are available, and now it has updated the version. Now see, it has not updated the version. It is still the same version, which is 221.0 to 221.0. So let's see if I'm going to give it a prompt. You are not changing the version from 221.0, which was problematic. Yeah, so see, it's actually saying we should be changing the version and not just fixing it. Oh, there we go. So now change the version to the latest one, which is 230.36. So let's see where it is. Okay, there we go. 230.36 is the latest one. Yes, that is what I want, sir. Let's see what it does now. All right, yeah, doing some testing. Now I'm fairly confident, like if we were to do it, if I were to do it without the help of this tool, I'll probably go back to the Maven repository, check on all the versions that are required, all the dependent versions as well, and then come back and then update it, and then debug that error in that way. Whilst what this has done is made sure that it is smart enough to actually go back, check all the available versions. If the version is not accurate, use another version, which in this particular case was the latest version that was available as well. So it's pretty darn close actually, which is really good. All right, finally, the build is successful now, which means we were able to download the latest version. Now let's see what it says. So, okay, grab Bedrock. Yep, it has compiled. Yes, so see, it says it has automatically fixed the issue and it has updated the version to the latest updated version, which is amazing. And it has also validated to ensure that I'm able to access that, which is awesome. All right, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to exit this and I'm going to do run.sh once again. And let's see if this fixes our earlier problem. All right, here we go, guys. On the front end, we had two tabs earlier, which is the items tab and the add new items tab. We've got one more tab which it has added, which is generate image. And you can see what it has done. It has automatically, let me just move this a little bit. So what it has done is it has actually created a prompt, a box to actually say enter the prompt. It has automatically picked up the properties that are there as an input, and it has some default properties that it has set, so which is pretty awesome. So let me say minion thinking about cloud. All right, so what it has done is it has failed to load credentials from AWS, which is expected because I haven't set up the configuration from my local machine as of yet. So let's come back to it shortly. All right, guys. So we got when we got the UI up and running, there was some issue with connecting to the AWS Bedrock APIs. So let me just start the Q chat once again, and say there were some issues with the image request for Bedrock Stability Diffusion API. Please check and fix the issue. So basically we are asking the model to actually fix the issue with the input payload. So let's see what it does. So it's trying to find the file which has got the image, sorry. Alright, so the request is image generation service. So what we're going to do now is an issue to the input. There's an issue to the input payload. So it's got the service now. So it's going to come up, think about what the problem is, and it says found the issue. So basically what it says is the problem is a structure issue with text prompts with the Stable Diffusion API, which is what we had. So basically it says text prompt needs to be an array of objects with text property. And it has to be an array of objects rather than an other object itself. So are you sure the payload format is right? I just ask it if it's sure that the so I've asked the question if the API is right or the change is right. So what it's trying to do now is trying to run the Bedrock AWS command. Alright, so it came up with the invoke model API. Yep, it's fine. Yep, so it's looking at the stability model diffusion. Cool. So it's got the model. Now it's testing the API. So it's executing the API. Awesome. So basically it's testing the API with a text prompt to ensure that we are passing in the right attributes. Alright, so it got the response back. Okay, so we got the response back, which is like the base64 encoded response for the image, which is fine. Yes. So result was success, which is great. Yes. So you can see it's trying to run the artifacts one once again. Let's see what it says. Alright, so basically it came back and said we need to fix our our code to match what the API requires as a payload. So yeah, so see it actually it was using map off, and basically it's changed to the object itself, which is, and it talks about when you change that to a hash map, that's what it requires, which is what it expects, which is great. Cool. So basically it's ran, we've done the changes, which is awesome. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go back to the item manager, and we're going to do the run.sh once again. And once we do the run.sh, let's see if our application comes back. Fantastic, there is our application. So the item service has returned 5 items, which is great. So let's enter a prompt, and I'd say minion thinking about cloud, and let's generate the image. So we failed to generate the image, and it says we've got a malformed input. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we will be copying this message. We're going to copy the message, and we're going to go back to QChat once again, and we're going to say image service returned the following error. So now it'll help us troubleshoot and diagnose the issue. So we'll say there is an issue with malformed input request from the image generation source, and hopefully it should pick up now. Alright, here you go. So it'll look at the file, it'll do a depth search, get the file, assess it once again, and now it's going to go and backtrack the issue. Yep, it's got the file now. It's reading from the file. Alright, so basically it's put a weight on the text, which is what it requires, and it was unable to fix that earlier. So basically we've added the weight, and now let's try running the service once again. Let's see what it says now. So let's try it once again. So basically it has identified that the weight parameter was missing. It got the weight parameter, and basically it hands a request for negative and slight preset, which is awesome. Alright, let's try it once again. Cool. Hopefully it should work this time around, but we'll see how we go. Starting the front end app. Hopefully we should see the page here. Okay, cool. What's going on with my fat fingers? All right. Whoops. So basically it again says, so we've attached the text prompt and we've added the text to it. Minions thinking about Cloud. But again it says please reformat and try again. Alright, that's okay. So let's go back to QChat once again and say image generation service has returned a So malform input request, please reformat your input. Mal has returned a malform input request. Please fix the payload. I'm going to pause it and come back. Hopefully it should be up and running then. Alright, so basically it says it found an issue. The problem is how text prompts arrays being constructed, especially when handling negative prompts. Let me fix up the structure. So basically it has fixed up the structure primarily for negative prompts and also for the regular prompts. Okay, let's try it once again. Go and let's go back and run our application once again. Let's keep our fingers and toes crossed, and hopefully it should work this time around. Again an error. Alright, this time around I'm going to have a look at it myself and then I'll come back. I'll fix it and come back. So I'll fix another issue with the response. The way it was getting casted was incorrect, so I'll fix that issue myself. And then, so hopefully when we start the app now, it should be up and running. So what I'm going to do now is quickly going to go and do the run.sh file, run.sh command, and hopefully it should compile the jar, get the backend up and running, and then quickly move to the front end app itself. Alright, here we go. Cool. So we got the front end deployed. Let's go to this and say minion saying hello. And let's click on generate image. There you go. That is awesome. finally we have something. took a bit of time with all the debugging and everything, but it's awesome to see this. Let's try saying something else. So minion thinking about cricket. It is Champions Trophy final, so surely minions will be thinking about cricket as well today. Whoops! I've got an error. Yeah, I think I'm trying to throttle it because of too many issues, so I'm getting a throttling error. Let's give it a minute. Hopefully it should be okay. Bit hazy, but nevertheless we got the image back. Let's say minion, let's say Socceroos at World Cup. God, it keeps on sending us too many requests. It's not happening. I'm going to check my throttling, that configuration that I have on my personal account, so because I can see it's getting throttled. There we go. That is awesome. So see, it actually picked up the Australian jersey as well. Awesome. Fantastic. Alright guys, it has been an amazing amazing journey to get this up and running. Thank you for sticking around if you're still watching, and would love to get your feedback, love to get your thoughts, and please share what you've learned, and if you're playing with it, please reach out and let me know what else you're doing with this, right? So see everyone, thank you again, and I'm gonna post something else again in context to this, and we do something similar but directly with Claude code itself. So I'll keep you posted there. Thanks everyone. Cheers. Bye.